Hello and hi again to Dr. English YouTube channel. This is Dr. Mafi, a PhD in Applied Linguistics, and today's lesson is about newspaper headlines. Actually, I'm going to talk about the kind of language we use in the media, not even generally, but specifically we're going to focus on the headlines that are made, in fact, on top of every articles or newspapers and magazines and tabloids. All right? Well, the kind of language we use ordinarily in normal text is different from the kinds that are used, or the language use of the words, the lexical choice, the grammar, syntax, and everything in the newspaper headlines. All right, be very careful about this. And I divided them into different subcategories, like the lexical choice, for example, the grammatical completeness, or syntax and structure, information packaging, and framing and perspective and viewpoints, and typography and formatting. Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. We are focusing, in fact, today in this particular video on general newspapers, talking about or incorporating various walks of life. I mean, different subjects, about society, about the community, about culture, about the sports, about economy, about the politics. We are not focusing on academic texts, all right, or scholarly journals, for example, because they follow or pursue their own interest. Not only that, but also they use a special language. So let's talk about the first choice, or the lexical one, the first item, lexical choice. In the newspaper headlines or magazine headlines, we use strong words, not ordinary words. They need to be concise, very short, all right, like Minimax model. Like you use the shortest words, but the most amount of information inherent in it. We use catchy words, or dramatic words, and provocative sometimes vocabularies, all right? Like instead of saying, for example, disagreement, we say water is split over budget, all right? And we just, suffice it to say by the most important or the foremost information, the main hits, basically, all right? Not the details. But generally, or the more neutral, or let's say nuanced vocabulary, depending on the context of the same newspaper headline, would be something like this: voters disagree about the proposed budget. Okay, this is how we talk normally, how we communicate on day-to-day purpose or basis. Well, about the grammatical completeness, we use incomplete sentences, not full sentences, right? And sometimes we use phrases without verbs. Like, for example, hostage crisis drama, no verbs in it. Or the first example that I gave, election surprise leaves voters astounded. There are two clauses, but we just boiled it down into like, what we call it, briefed it and compacted it in a very short space. All right, because of the brevity that we face in the newspaper headlines, or even in the columns of the newspapers, because we don't have much space, but we have to, communicate and relate the story one way or another. Well, the ordinary language of the same, or use of the same sentences, would be something like, the election surprised voters who are now astonished. Even the word astonished, note please. Hostage crisis is still ongoing, right? Or still continuing. We still have it on the way. Well, about the syntax and the structure, we need to be very careful, because we use, first of all, telegraphic texts rather than very long and detailed use. We use active voices, not passive voices. We use present tense for immediacy, all right, to talk about that event is urgent, or the emergency of the situation, the importance of that, for example, event or accident. And we use only past tense for passive verbs. We use the active, passive, active tense for passive verbs, all right? And we normally omit and leave out the auxiliary verbs. Be careful. Well, MPs means members of the parliament, but we shorten the words. We use abbreviations. This is another, actually, language use we have or we encounter in the newspaper headlines especially. Well, MPs are split over budget, but the normal sentence would be, members of the parliament are divided over the budget proposal. You see, this is how we normally talk. About the information packaging, we talk about the foreground, not the background, all right? What happened on the surface, in fact, the core of the reality, the most important, the salient elements or pieces of news. And we delete the rest or the details. We don't go about the bush here. All right, especially I'm talking about the newspaper headlines. Well, like tech firm overtakes rivals in revenue. We talk about who, what, result. That's it. In short, like telegraphic. All right. Uh, but the ordinary language is or follows at or reads as follows: the tech firm is company surpassed rivals in quarterly revenue due to new product launches. All right. So you see how long it is. All right. And we give the foreground or the context to it too. We set the stage one way or another, or in the column and in the body text, we talk in detail about it or in length. About the framing and perspective, I need to tell you something, quite intriguing. We have a separate independent field of study, which is called CDA, Critical Discourse Analysis. It's a kind of interdisciplinary field or subject between linguistics and politics. It's very good to know about this because you can't be fooled by the media. Every medium has its own agenda to follow, right? They are there are never neutral media out there. All right, they always take sides, and they have a particular way of looking at things, and they only mention that point of view that, in fact, is in line with their core radical sometimes policy. So I'm telling you, they are always biased in that case. Like for example, this example: candidate promises together a stance on crime. However, they left out a part. But the normal, the neutral, the impartial text or headline would read as follows: the candidate outlines several crime-related policies, though experts note uncertainty. They leave out the uncertainty part. You see? So there are sometimes a slanted, biased in that case. I'm not talking about all media, but most media, in fact, follow the same pattern. And last but not least, typography, formatting. They use a special font color, or they capitalize all of the letters, especially in the newspaper headlines. Like this one: City Hall approves new park plan. All of them capitalized. Not the initial letter of every word is capitalized. All right. Sometimes they do that too, but this is the way it is. Sometimes they italicize. Sometimes they largen the font. So they go beyond the standard font size and weight. All right. So here we talked about the kind of language we use in the media in general, but in particular, newspaper headlines. You know what to do. Leave me any comments you like in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.